Since the announcement of Lewis Hamilton joining Ferrari, Red Bull have had plenty of thinking to do. Sergio Perez hasn't been performing anywhere near Max Verstappen, and the recent availability of Carlos Sainz has presented them with a golden opportunity. And now whispers around the paddock are saying that they have made up their mind between the two. So, do they go Spain or Mexico? Let's find out in today's video. Ferrari's nearly departed Carlos Sainz is being considered for Red Bull's second Formula One seat in the upcoming season. Sainz is currently completing his final year with Ferrari, having been replaced by Lewis Hamilton for 2025 during the winter shuffle. Interestingly, Sainz is the sole non-Red Bull driver to have won an F1 race in the past 18 months. Despite this achievement, he finds himself without a team for the next season at the moment. Despite requiring surgery during the second race weekend of 2024, Carlos Sainz made a remarkable comeback and halted Max Verstappen's early season dominance by winning the Australian Grand Prix 2 weeks later. This victory marked the first time since Sainz's win in Singapore last year that someone other than Verstappen has claimed a Grand Prix victory. Christian Horner, the team principal of Red Bull Racing, playfully remarked that Carlos Sainz seems to be our nemesis. But it seems that Sainz has caught Horner's attention, as the team boss hinted at being interested in him and even went out of his way to drop that hint. The Australian Grand Prix turned out to be a tough weekend for the main contenders vying to be Max Verstappen's teammate in 2025. Sergio Perez, the current driver for Red Bull, saw his strong start to the year come to a disappointing end, coinciding with Verstappen's retirement from the race. Meanwhile, Daniel Ricciardo, a primary contender, had a challenging home event for Red Bull's second team. Yuki Tsunoda, Daniel Ricciardo's teammate, performed excellently by scoring Red Bull's first points of the season. In a fair scenario, he would be a stronger candidate for Red Bull Racing than he currently appears to be. However, this is where Carlos Sainz comes into play. After the Melbourne race, Christian Horner was questioned about Yuki Tsunoda possibly being overlooked, and he used that opportunity to hint that Carlos Sainz could be considered as an option. He said, "Yuki's a very quick driver, we know that. But we want to field the best pairing that we can at Red Bull Racing, and sometimes you've got to look outside the pool as well. You've had a very fast unemployed driver win the race, so the market is reasonably fluid with certain drivers." The obvious hint led to Horner being asked directly, would he consider bringing Sainz back to Red Bull? Here was his answer. Based on a performance like that, you couldn't rule any possibility out. For any team with a vacancy in 2025, like Red Bull, not considering signing Carlos Sainz would be a missed opportunity. This applies to teams like Mercedes, Aston Martin, and even the upcoming Audi team, which has shown interest in Sainz for a while. Christian Horner's stance is clear. Red Bull aims to field the best pairing we can. Sainz would bring an upgrade over Perez and is a more compelling alternative compared to Ricciardo or Tsunoda. Carlos Sainz is a highly skilled driver who is often underrated by many both inside and outside the F1 paddock. When Ferrari selected him to replace Sebastian Vettel in 2021, he is known for his intelligence, hard work ethic, adaptability, and surprising speed on the track. Throughout his career, he has performed impressively against top-tier drivers like Max Verstappen during their rookie days at Toro Rosso, Lando Norris at McLaren, and currently Charles Leclerc at Ferrari. According to the race's inquiry to Lando Norris and Charles Leclerc following Sainz's victory, they indicated that within the paddock, especially among those who are observant, Carlos Sainz is highly valued and not underrated. Leclerc said, "Everybody knows Carlos's worth in the paddock. He's one of the highest-rated drivers in the paddock. He's been extremely strong every time he was in a Formula One car, and he has showed it multiple times. So I don't think he's underrated for that. I think everybody knows Carlos's worth, and that's why I've said many times that I'm not too worried about his future. I'm sure that many team principals are, he doesn't say it. But for sure they are speaking with him, and I'm sure he will have many opportunities and he'll just have to make the best choice for his career." Lando Norris, who partnered with Carlos Sainz during his first 2 seasons in F1 at McLaren, and is also friends with him off the track, agreed that Sainz is highly regarded by those who know him well. He emphasized that people who understand Sainz's abilities, work ethic, approach, and dedication to becoming one of the best in the sport recognize his value. Norris highlighted that Sainz's recent performances, including his victory, further prove his capabilities and commitment. "For the people who know what he's capable of doing, you would never ever say he's underrated," Norris said. Of course, results are always a bit of a point to show, and people on the outside just easily judge things from what you see on TV. But when you've worked with him, when you know what he's capable of doing, and when things click, they click very well, and he has performances like he does this weekend. I would say all year, he's proved to be a step up from what he has been last year. you're silly if you underrate him. Carlos Sainz's reputation may have been influenced by his somewhat underwhelming year and a bit at Renault, especially after he chose to leave the Red Bull family on his own terms. Some people may perceive him as lacking a fraction of pace to be a consistently dominant force in qualifying. However, he is undeniably a formidable all-round driver who has demonstrated that at his best, he can compete admirably with some of the most highly regarded stars in Formula One. One potential obstacle to Carlos Sainz's return to Red Bull is the history of tensions during his time alongside Max Verstappen as rookies at Toro Rosso. While the tension was not directly between the two drivers, their fathers, Carlos Sainz Sr. and Jos Verstappen, played significant roles in their careers. This dynamic, along with the involvement of their respective entourages, led to a toxic atmosphere, as indicated by Red Bull Motorsport advisor Helmut Marko. There is speculation that Max Verstappen might not welcome Carlos Sainz's return to Red Bull racing. Some close to Sainz suspect that Verstappen could be hesitant about it due to concerns about potential disruptions and the fact that Sainz is a formidable competitor who may not fit the mould of an easily beaten number 2 driver, a role that Verstappen has enjoyed since Daniel Ricciardo's departure at the end of 2018. F1 journalist and former team manager Peter Windsor has suggested that Sergio Perez's contract with Red Bull has already been extended beyond 2024 based on rumours he has heard in the paddock. If these rumours are accurate, it could mean the end of Carlos Sainz's chances of joining Red Bull Racing when he departs from Ferrari at the end of the season. Carlos Sainz took advantage of Max Verstappen's terminal brake issue at the Australian Grand Prix, dominating the field, including his teammate Charles Leclerc, to secure his third career victory in Formula One. However, with Lewis Hamilton set to replace him at Ferrari next season, Sainz finds himself without a drive for the upcoming season. Carlos Sainz's performances since joining Ferrari have indeed demonstrated his capabilities and warranted consideration for another drive at a top team. However, with his Ferrari career ending and McLaren securing both their drivers long-term, his options for a front-running team are limited to Red Bull and Mercedes. A move to Red Bull seems complicated, as discussed in the murmurs heard in Melbourne, according to Peter Windsor. I heard in the paddock area from various sources that are pretty reliable that Sergio has already renewed his contract for next year, in which case you'd say, well, what was the rush? And if that's the case, well, that door obviously then is closed for Carlos Sainz, which leaves really the only option that really works for him would be a plug-in year at Mercedes alongside George Russell, which wouldn't be a comfortable year for Carlos, really. Just having to jump in the car, George Russell in the other car, all a bit pressure-filled and difficult. Doing so with a contract to join Audi in 2026. If Sergio Perez's contract extension rumours with Red Bull Racing are correct, it would signify a significant vote of confidence in Perez. This extension would be particularly meaningful given the constant speculation last year about whether Perez would continue driving for Red Bull beyond the 2023 season, let alone beyond the end of his contract in 2024. Sergio Perez achieved back-to-back P2 finishes in the first 2 races of the season, contributing to Red Bull's strong start and their goal of replicating last year's success of securing the top 2 positions in the Drivers' Championship. For Carlos Sainz Jr., the situation presents an interesting dilemma. While a move to Mercedes would be prestigious, the team has been experiencing a gradual decline during the ground effect era. On the other hand, a move to Sauber or Aston Martin might be riskier, but could potentially pay off with the upcoming regulation changes in 2026. In terms of pure performance, Carlos Sainz must indeed be under consideration, not just by Red Bull Racing but also by other teams. His recent performances have not only showcased his skill but also his ability to be in the right place at the right time, which is a valuable asset in Formula One. While talking about how his win put the team principals on notice, he said, "It does no harm. That is 100%. I'm still without a job for next year, so I guess this is going to help it. I think everyone knows more or less what I'm capable of doing. I do race for myself. I race to keep proving to myself that I can win whenever I get a competitive car and whenever there's an opportunity to win in a weekend. I don't race to prove to team principals or to prove to people my value. I race to prove to myself that if I'm given a car, I can get it done and I can be up there. That's the mentality and the approach that I have, and I will keep having the rest of the year." If you were Red Bull, would you choose Sergio Perez or Carlos Sainz? Tell us in the comment section down below. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Thanks for watching.